Hey guys, yeah, I know what I said, but things kind of changed last minute, so forget that video I made. But okay, so right out of the gate, one of the biggest feelings I got from reading this chapter is that Kuzan needed Garp to defeat him, and what I mean by that is between the reveal that he became the 10th captain in Blackbeard's fleet and just getting the whole flashback that shows the circumstances that led to him becoming allied with Blackbeard, Kuzan was kind of in deep. Like, it's clear that what was a simple infiltration mission kind of got more complicated the more time more time he spent with them. And I think to Kuzan, he did kind of see Garp as the only way out, especially when you look at their verbal exchange. It was definitely at that point where I get the feeling, yeah, Kuzan needed an out to make his escape, and who better than the man he trusts the most and his former mentor, Mukide Garp. Also, yes, even though we knew it was coming, I do like how the movies and manga continue to share semblances of continuity by learning Kuzan lost his leg in the battle with Sakazuki, and that loose connection that although Z trained with Garp, trained him, Garp was even though Z was the one who technically trained Kuzan, it was Garp was the one Kuzan considered to be his mentor, even when he was just a fresh face out of the academy and whatnot. With that said, though, let's talk about the huge reveal in the flashback that supposedly one of the road poneglyphs lies in the possession of a man with a burn scar that steers an all-black ship that swallows enemies, but by way of vortexes and just control of the weather itself. Now, like so many others, that sounds a lot like Dragon, Luffy's father. And truthfully, I'm kind of a lot less surprised by this than a lot of others who have read and reviewed the chapter already, simply because when you look back on all of Dragon's early appearances, but especially the post-Enies lobby moment, where he says outright, "The day we meet will come at some point. The day we meet Luffy will come at some point." Like, it makes this reveal make all the more sense. Whatever happens, that path to the One Piece is leading to the Straw Hats to both Shanks and to Luffy's father as well. Shanks and to Luffy's father. Like, these are the two biggest hurdles outside of the Throne Wars itself for Luffy to overcome in order to become Pirate King. And assuming Oda doesn't pull a double fake out on us, and that it is in fact Dragon that he's talking about, who has the one of the road poneglyphs, I'd really like to know the circumstances of how he ended up in possession of one of them, but of one of said road poneglyphs. But it is kind of amazing how Oda foreshadowed this, because how Oda had set this up and just how he foreshadowed this, because Shanks, I think because Shanks gave Luffy his hat, probably already planning from that point in order for them to face each other for the right to make that final stretch in order to find the One Piece. With Shanks, I think right now secretly hoping Luffy does pass the final test he has planned for the young pirate, whereas Dragon has kind of prophesized with certainty that he and Luffy are going to meet, and because again he has one of the poneglyphs that Luffy needs, and again makes sense because he's got that thing Luffy needs. Now, here's the question I've got with this. I have to assume he didn't tell Robin this, because if he did, then I'm sure if he did tell Robin, then I think he would have had to have sworn her to secrecy. But I have to assume that Robin didn't know. But in either case, just the fact that Dragon has kind of set this up himself, that Dragon has set the prophecy up, so to speak, that yeah, he and Luffy are going to meet. It's almost certainty that yeah, they got to meet, and again makes sense because he's nuts. And hopefully when that does happen, hopefully when Dragon and Luffy finally do meet, we learn a few other things as well that have been kind of left on the table when this, as far as Luffy's birth origins go, when this reunion finally happens, and and like I said, obviously learning about what Luffy's birth, but also if Dragon, like, this is kind of the other interesting thing for me. If Dragon is the one with the burn scar, then where did he get it? Because right now, that is likely the link to Dragon's origins of how his crusade against the government began, and I'd really like to learn that as well. Like, there's so much right now to, if this does indeed turn out to be Dragon, then there's so much that can be explored with this, and I really hope we do. But okay, outside of the key big key plot points that this chapter covered, one thing I did appreciate about this chapter is how Oda really used it as an opportunity to give a bit of characterization to Blackbeard, because nowadays we kind of just see him as an evil piece of shit and the final boss we have to defeat. And don't get me wrong, he still is all those things and more, but I also appreciate how, for whatever little it's worth, this chapter did put a bit more emphasis on showing Blackbeard still does have kind of a weird moral center and an honor code of sorts, mostly shown in the flashback when we see him trying to calm the situation with Kuzan down, but even going so far as being the one to offer him a position on his crew, and going back to what I said in the beginning about Kuzan needing an out. I think over time, the time Kuzan spent with them did become more than just an infiltration mission for Kuzan, and I think he did generally form some kind of bond with them. So I think he needed Garp's help in severing those ties, so to speak. With that said, though, let's talk about what happens after we get out of flashback, because at that point, it cuts the end of the battle between Law and Blackbeard with a surprise attack from Beppo, who, despite the moon supposedly not being out, transforms into full Sulong. And yeah, I'm going to need a little bit of an explanation on that one, Oda, because unless there's an alternative means to transform, it's been explicitly stated the only time Minx can transform is when the full moon is out. So again, how is that possible? I really want to know that. Also, I know Oda needed to build up the threat of both Blackbeard and Shanks post Wano to show, yes, they're just as much of an equal threat as Kaido was. And I do understand that in the sense of Law needing to be a sacrificial lamb to reinforce that, but after going back and thinking about Kid's encounter with Shanks, it did make me realize just how much Oda did Kid kind of dirty, if I'm being honest. Like, don't get me wrong. In a battle like that, where it's Shanks versus Kid, Shanks is invariably going to win. There's no variable where Kid wins that. But it is also kind of a case of I feel Oda throwing everything Kid learned in Wano out the window. Like him getting one-shotted by Shanks in the way he did, while obviously serving, again, the purpose of showing they had him that the rookie trio only scratched the surface of what the new world holds with Kaido. The idea of ending the fight before it even begins, kind of looking back, feels like it does have a slight disservice to Kid's character, and the only reason I forgive it more with the Law Blackbeard encounter is, again, because you kind of have to show Blackbeard's strength. With Shanks, because we already know he's that strong, I feel Oda could have given Kid a little bit more wiggle room in that fight. Not even fighting Shanks, but maybe one of his crewmates or something, but just something where it would allow Kid, in order to show off his abilities, what he's learned from his fight with Kaido a little bit more against the fight with Shanks. Again, still have the same kind of result, I guess, but just allow Kid to stretch his legs, so to speak. Let him show off what he's learned. Like, I think, looking back, the Shanks versus Kid fight, I understand why it happened the way it did, but it doesn't hold up as well as I thought it would either, unfortunately. Like, again, I don't want to... something just felt off in that fight. That's the only way I can describe it. But, yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and on this Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.